Kia ora koutou, everybody. It's so lovely to be here with you today from a very rainy Wellington, but I am going to be grateful for the garden whilst I look outside and think, oh, I might not get my beach swim today. My name is Jackie Maguire. I'm a clinical psychologist, but I have spent my work life working with organisations, supporting leaders and people to go, how do we make work the best place it can be so we can all use our skills, collaborate well together, and have work add rather than detract from our life. It's really lovely to be invited again by Tribe to present to all of you who are the Tribe Family Network. Emma Scott, who is the Tribe Chief Executive, she is going to host the Q&A at about 20 past 12 on this session. So I have got 20 minutes of speaking with you, and today I'm going to make you do some work. It's not a one-way dialogue today. I'm going to make you think and reflect and write. We've got 20 minutes for that. And then we have 10 minutes for questions. And so I have been prompted and told with my notes to remember to say that there is a Q&A tab down the bottom. So please could you ask your questions in the Q&A tab rather than in the chat function, and we shall be able to go from there. So we met last year in about November, I think, because I was about to head off to the UK, and we had a conversation about burnout. And following on from that really was this thinking around, I know for leaders that there is huge pressure to drive high performance. There is pressure to be present for your people. There is pressure in writing, in discussion, in the research around how important it is in leadership to have sustainable organizational success. And that got me thinking around, well, what is therefore the toll on leaders to be able to continue to sustainably show up and be there for your people? I even think about a core trust model, for example. When you think about, what makes a good leader or what makes successful teams, most people, when I ask that question, will say to me, well, Jackie, it's about trust. You've got to have trust in that relationship. And then when I say, well, break down trust for me, how do you make a trusting relationship? And there are many factors in there, but part of that, and a really important part of trust, is consistency. How, as a leader, do I consistently show up? How do I consistently hold my mana or hold my integrity? How do I consistently demonstrate empathy and that balance between kind of inner strength and exterior vulnerability? And consistency takes energy and time and headspace. I also think about in my work kind of the toll on what I would call emotion labor for leaders, or anyone really that is front facing or people facing. Emotion labor is a term where as human beings, we have a whole lot of feelings that go on internally. So I could be tired today. I could be frustrated at the last conversation I had with a client who wasn't listening, or where I delivered on expectations and they've come back and told me that I've missed the mark, even though what I delivered was based on their instruction. And then I have a member of my team come in, and I have to be able to manage my internal frustration, anger, sadness, disappointment, whatever's going on for me inside, and appear calm, clear, responsive, empathetic, present for them. And that disconnect, if what I'm feeling inside is not what I'm portraying outside, that discordance causes what we know as emotion labor. And that can be really high for leaders. So for me, when I'm thinking about, gosh, there is a huge impact for leaders to continue to show up, both for their teams, but also for their business's success. Well, how do we actually help leaders to stay well, to have resource internally, to have capacity for themselves? And so that really was the thinking behind self-leadership, which is what this session is entitled. And I was trying to think of, your catchy title that you might take away. And I hate sayings like put your oxygen mask on first, and it makes me cringe, but they're things that people remember. So my takeaway from today is, how do you fill your own cup so that you've got the ability to kind of provide for others? And so that really is what today's reflection is about. I also think it's important to put today's leadership in the reality of our landscape. which is we know we are operating in a world of consistent change and ambiguity. We know that the economic climate is dicey and still tricky for many people. We know that globalization puts pressure on people's time and time frames around work in terms of making it difficult to switch off. We know that there is angst in the world. And so we also know through that climate, what people most need is to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel like they matter. And largely that too comes down to how a leader creates that environment. So, how do you, as a leader, I suppose, nourish yourself? That's the term I use. How do you nourish yourself so you can sustainably provide for others? So, I'm going to take us through a set of reflection exercises today to really go through that equation of what does self leadership actually mean and how do we create that? It's a 6-stage process. And so, firstly, for you, I want you to go, well, who are you? Self awareness and really actually self insight is a major part of self leadership. We have to know who we are. We have to know our strengths. We have to know our vulnerabilities. We have to know who we want to be, how we want to show up. And I really think who you want to be in your life more than just your role. So, I'm going to ask you if you are in a leadership position in your organization. My question to you is, and this is a really shortcut way of doing this exercise. If you're interested, email me. There are long ways to getting to your leadership ethos statement. Your leadership ethos really is about how you want the people to feel around you. You could think of it as when you finish your final day of your role, when you hang up your lanyard or you hand in your laptop, how do you want people to remember you? What impression or mark do you want to have left on your team? And there are lengthy ways of answering that robustly and fully. For example, if you are part of the New Zealand Defence Forces, if you go on deployment and you are a leader of a team on deployment, you would be required to write a leadership ethos statement and to share that with your recruits before you go away so that your team know what to expect from you when you are away and on mission. And really, I think many good leaders that I have worked with have a similar ability of being able to articulate to their team who they are as a leader and open really the door to feedback from their team about whether they are showing up in alignment to that. So my shortcut way of kind of getting to the crux of what's your leadership ethos, who are you, is to say in 3 words, could you describe the leader you wish to be in terms of how you want your people to feel with you and how you want them to interact with you? You can come from a values-based perspective, you can come from an emotion-based perspective, but who are you? Are you motivating? Are you caring? Are you backing? Are you inspirational? Like what to you is really important about who you want to be? And can you kind of use that as your compass when things are stressful, when you have multiple demands, when you walk into the office today and go, I want to be able to show up for my people, I want to be able to do a good job. What am I embodying and who am I representing in my role as leader? It's kind of your first reflection around that self-awareness piece of who are you. I also think, though, as a leader, it's really important that we can hold that work is only one part of our identity. I think for many people, especially early in your career, perhaps if you're not a parent or you're not in a long-standing relationship or you're built or you're just focused on building your career, our work can become all encompassing. And for some people, that continues through their whole career, that work is a predominant part of their life. And I am not placing judgment on that. I'm not in a position of saying whether that's right or wrong. But I suppose what I know from a self leadership, well-being, mental health perspective is when we have a holistic life, when there are multiple facets to our environment, multiple facets to our identity. If something is stressful in one area of our life, we have buffers that hold us up. So if I'm going through a particularly niggly change at work, if I've got conflict between members of my team and I am spending a lot of energy, managing that, trying to be present, working with legal, to work out a pathway forward, and that's particularly stressful. If I have got a robust life outside of work, potentially that's really helpful for me because I have got something to transition to, whether that's pickleball on a Thursday night, whether that's I've got friends that get together, and we do book club, whether that's I've got children to go home to and they need their mother. If I have got multiple facets of life that are important to me, that enables me, I think, to be well sustainably because all my eggs are not in one basket. So I suppose my second reflection question is, well, who are you outside of your role? Who are you as Jackie, as Mark, as Jane, as Emma, as Bob, whatever your name is? What is important to you and who are you? And have you got a good grasp of that? A really good colleague of mine said, Jackie, we talk a lot about self-awareness and self-awareness being important, but actually I think self-insight is important because self-insight really is not just about knowing who you are, but knowing where to place your energy and knowing what you need to continue and what you need to do differently. And so that kind of segues that self-insight bit into the second part of self-leadership, which is, are you aware about what gets in the way of you showing up in alignment with your ethos? So if you want to be inspirational, caring, articulate, knowledgeable, whatever your three words are, as who you want to be as a leader, if you've got that in within you, are you also really aware of what environments or what triggers prevent you from showing up? Because damned if I have found any leader that 100% of the time is able to embody who they want to be in their ethos. I think there are leaders who work very hard, who have high emotional intelligence, who have great self-insight that get there pretty consistently. But I think to be able to do that, they have really spent the time to know themselves and to know their vulnerabilities and to know what situations prevent them. So, for example, I want to show up and I want to be able to be inclusive as a leader, for example. I want to be able to walk into a team meeting, look around the room, ensure everybody's had a voice, be clear, be able to pre-think about how I ensure I'm operating to people's personalities. Have I got people that need time to prepare rather than being put on the spot? Therefore, have I put agendas out, etc. Like maybe that's what I want to be as a leader. I might know that when I've got a critical deadline coming up, or when I feel like I'm needing to please a client, perhaps I know in that instance that my desire to be the best, that my desire to please others gets in the way, and I start prioritizing external results or external expectations over my team, and therefore I'm overriding or kind of not being able to live up to my inclusive leadership at those times. If I know that, and if I am aware of what my particular vulnerabilities or triggers are, if I know how my behavior then starts to play out in those instances, that's really helpful because hopefully I can spot it early if I am starting to deviate away from my ethos. So hopefully that makes sense. Say you want to be a calm leader and you know that in certain situations, if you've got a team member that doesn't listen to you or a team member that isn't a team player, for example, maybe that really gets your goat and actually you start to get irritable, you start to get defensive, you start to call them out unnecessarily in front of other people, you start to feel unable to regulate. That would be an example of what's a certain situation that pulls you away from your ethos. So who do you want to be? What gets in the way of being able to show up as that person? And then the third part to self-leadership, I think, is have you got skills to course correct? If you can spot very early when you are deviating from your ethos, or you have a certain situation coming up which is likely to be a pressure point for you, how do you remain calm? How do you regulate so you can be flexible, so you can feel in control, and so you can steer your behavior in the direction you want to go in? Now, this ability to be psychologically flexible, I suppose, is pretty key to whether you're looking at our mental health literature, whether you're looking at being resilient, even though that's not a term I use very often. I think it's more helpful to talk about being well. I think people have a visceral response to resilience, but if that's a term that you like, that psychological flexibility of insight plus action to course correct is really helpful. And so my question to you would be, how do you pause in those moments if you can feel your behavior deviating, and how do you calm so you can be in control? And what you're doing from a neuro perspective or a brain perspective is when we get reactive, we start to operate from our midbrain, from your amygdala, from your hippocampus, which are your emotion centers in your brain. And what we know about that is when those parts of your brain are activated, your frontal lobe, which is your adult brain, your problem-solving brain, your regulatory brain, the part of your brain that is able to really make good and helpful, effective decisions, starts to come off or starts to go offline. That's like, you can kind of think of it, my fingers as your frontal lobe, as they kind of start to flap in the wind. And so really those calming mechanisms, what they're doing is getting that frontal lobe back online and holding it there so you can make good decisions. So if I was to say to you, what are your go-to strategies to calm? Maybe you're somebody that uses your body to ground you in the moment. I notice my heart racing. I notice I'm having unhelpful thoughts, that person in my team is self-absorbed and I can't be bothered with them. I notice I'm having this, I need to please others. Okay, I'm going to press my feet into the ground and I'm really going to just focus on my heels in the ground to center me. And I'm going to focus on that until I feel calm enough to speak or act in a way that's useful. Maybe you are, I'm going to have a glass of cold water, because anything cold shocks your vagus nerve, your vagal nerve in your body. That releases oxytocin. That helps keep your frontal lobe online. So maybe I'm going to go and run my wrists under cold water, or I'm going to have a glass of ice water to try and make me stay calm. Maybe I'm somebody that goes, I need to pause and say, look, I just need to come back to you. I've just got something I need to attend to and I really want to be present. You might have nothing to attend to, but it's an ability to go out, take a breath and come back in, to cut that cycle reaction that's happening, to give yourself time to calm and center. Maybe you're someone that puts your hand on the table in front of you, because the table will be cooler than your hand if you're starting to get worked up. And that temperature difference might be enough to focus on, to distract your brain, to be able to regulate and bring that frontal lobe online. Maybe you're somebody that if it's a virtual meeting, you decide that it's going to be a tricky conversation, you're likely to be triggered, so you say, let's do it on the phone rather than using our face-to-face for this phone call, because you are able to kind of regulate yourself by not having to look in that moment. And of course, I absolutely get it. You got to pick and choose. Face-to-face is really important. But there are particular circumstances where sometimes actually old school phone is okay and you can regulate through that. So what are your strategies and tools to regulate? They might be some emotional strategies. Maybe you have thinking strategies where, for example, if you're one of those people that has I need to work hard, I need to please others, I need to keep going. Like if you've got unhelpful narratives that pop up in your head, I need to be stronger, that drive behavior away from your ethos, they are unhelpful thinking patterns. Maybe a strategy you have is just to name it. That's my I need to please others thought, or that's my Jackie be perfect thinking. And actually what we know is that when you name it, you tame it. You name it to tame it. And so actually maybe a strategy of mine is I'm going to be aware of my thinking. I'm going to have a mindfulness to my thinking. And if I can notice or spot unhelpful thoughts, I name it. And the naming, it helps me regulate, because I name to tame. And the naming ensures that I kind of circumvent that. I nip it in the bud before it takes on a life for my own. So that's kind of step 3. Who am I? What takes me away from my ethos and who I want to be? And when I notice that, how do I rectify it and get back on track quickly? The 4th step is for you to feel nourished, for you to feel like you have capacity, to have energy. What do you need to have in your life to enable you to live to your ethos, to enable you to be well-rounded, stay mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, socially healthy? And so, a quick way, I suppose, to ask you that is, what are the pillars you need in your life to be the best version of yourself? What do you need to be doing? Who needs to be in your life? How do you schedule and incorporate this in a way that means that you can kind of do it, that it doesn't become overwhelming. What am I actually talking about? If my husband was on this call, and I've joked to people before, if you've been to a tribe event, you may have heard me. He's a CNC guy. I need my coffee and croissant. I need half an hour out of my day to go, be quiet, read the paper, have some downtime. He's probably more introverted than me, and then I have got energy for others. But if I don't get the downtime, he would say he becomes irritable or frustrated. For me, I'm a reader. I read every day. For me, that's escape from my world. Again, is kind of, I suppose, solo time. I'm a mum of 3 young kids, so if I'm not working, I'm parenting. And it's really an important part of that nourishment is I love to read. I get enjoyment from that. And it feels like a bit of special downtime, even if it's 15 minutes a day. You might be an exerciser. You might be someone that loves cooking good food. You might be someone that likes to call someone on your way home. Like, what are the pillars in your life that fill you, that provide you energy, that leave you feeling nourished? And even when you think about the people there, there will be people in your life that nourish you. There will be people in your life that take from you and that drain you. Are you cognizant? Are you making purposeful choices about who nourishes you? And are you prioritizing those people? Emma, it's 12:21. I'm supposed to have finished. Give me 2 more minutes because I want to get through these slides. Sorry. The fifth part to
Go
this
for it,
the
Jackie.
fifth
That's
part to the
absolutely fine.
process then is to be optimal, we need to recover. So our brains are not designed to be on all the time. None of us can operate in peak performance 24 hours a day. That is just not how adrenaline in your body is designed to be used. It's designed to be used to help you peak perform and then to recover, peak perform and then to recover. And something that I found really useful throughout my career, I probably heard about these 3 Rs a decade ago, and they've stuck with me because it's a catchy thing that my brain will take hold of, is actually for our body to optimally perform, to be nourished, to be able to give to others. We need to have rest time in our day, which is when you're doing nothing. Rest time is not even, slumping and watching TV. Rest time is when you are being quiet and still in your mind. We need recreation and fun. That's actually really important to our brains. That feeling of joy and mastery and satisfaction that comes with activity. And we need relationships. We need connection to feel like we belong, for our body to feel safe, to be able to think well. So if you think about your typical week, I suppose my question to you would be, do you feel like you get enough of those 3 Rs? Do you rest? Do you have periods of recreation, of things you enjoy? Do you get relationship time? And if you thought about those 3 Rs, are any of them letting you down? And if so, can you just pick one? And can you go, how do I dial that up? And if I look at that, I would go, yeah, I get rest. Maybe, well, you might tell me reading's not rest. I'm going to classify it in that category because it is pretty mindful and slow for me. I get quite a lot of relationship time, but do I do a lot of fun stuff for me? No. Like, if someone asked me what my hobby was, I don't know. I've been a mother for the last 5 years and I work and I parent. I don't know what I enjoy anymore. And so if I was to honestly to reflect on that, I'd go, actually, I need to up my recreation. What do I do that I enjoy? What are the things that are activity, mastery, satisfaction based, and how do I get more than that? I used to love playing tennis. I'm trying to work out how I get some tennis in my life with a 15-month-old that won't sit still on the side of a court. The last part for me in this self-leadership really is about the expectations you have on yourself. And I think we live in a society where we are consistently messaged that we should be able to have it all. And I think that is really damaging. I think none of us can have it all the time. I think life comes in seasons. I think life comes in chapters, and we have to be mindful about where we spend our time and energy and focus so that we can show up and be present in the places that are meaningful to our life right now. This is called the 4-burner model. We referenced it in the burnout session that we did last time, but I suppose I just wanted to re-bring it into today to say part of self-leadership is being purposeful with your time and energy and resource. And so if you look in those domains of life, health, work, family, friends, what's a priority for you at the moment? And how do you be very cognizant of, if you're wanting to high perform at work, for example, what are you prepared to dial down? You might be able to run them all at half gas, and maybe you are okay being okay at the moment across all 4 domains. But if you're wanting to excel, what are you prepared to turn down to enable you to do that? And I think that can be very challenging and very tough for people to think of and be aware of, and to kind of reconcile in their brain, because we have been so charged with you should be able to do it all. But can you be really meaningful so you can protect yourself? So self-leadership, Cornell University said it is one of the number one things that is required for successful leadership: to have self-insight, to be able to act on our strengths and weaknesses, to be able to be very determined in how we maintain and nourish our capacity so that we can continue to give to others. And with that, Emma, I pause.
I expected you to go over even more. So, Jackie, thank you so much for your words of wisdom. They, it's wonderful. We've had lots of people messaging us asking if we can share the information. So, but thank you so much. A couple of questions. Let's head into them. Somebody has asked, I am keen to hear your view on emotional intelligence and its role in being a good leader.
So I think it's critical in terms of good, effective leadership. And again, if you look at that research by Cornell University, it's really clear that leaders who are able to psychologically respond to their teams do successful work. So being a good leader doesn't necessarily mean, well, it doesn't mean just driving results. You know, it's not just about being inspirational or aspirational. That fundamental need for human beings is to feel seen, heard, and understood. People need to feel like they matter. And so what do we need to be doing as a leader to enable that? I have to be present. I have to be able to recognize the emotional states of my team. I have to be able to be curious and coach rather than tell in those moments. I have to be able to stay calm myself, or inhibit my ability to fix things all the time, so that I can help people hold their own autonomy and we can collaboratively come up with a solution, rather than me just coming in and implementing things without somebody else having input. So for me, soft skills, people skills, being human, I think is fundamental to good leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Another question, have you seen an increase in leaders putting self-care and awareness front of mind post-COVID? And what are they doing?
No. It would be the short answer.
Good answer.
What have I seen post-COVID? I have seen workplaces that are financially struggling. I have seen workplaces where people are expected to do the same, if not more work, with less resource. I have
Absolutely.
seen organisations frightened that their people will go overseas, and so they want to do anything they can to retain their
Yeah.
people. And I have seen intergenerational tension in the workplace. And unfortunately, I think what that has meant for leaders is sometimes leaders are frightened, or they feel unable to be clear with their teams. They feel unable to set expectations with their team. They are burning the candle at both ends to try and keep their people happy at the expense of themselves. They are burning out. Jared Haar's research from Professor Jared Haar from the Massey University talks about leaders having burnout at double the rate of staff. So in fact, I think we've seen the opposite.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about consistency, business results, purity, clarity, and actually, you know, you can't, I know you use the analogy of the mask on the plane and you don't like it, but it's true, so isn't it? True. It's so true. So I've got one last question, and we're getting comments about sharing all of this, but the last question is there any impact to this forms from a neurodiversity perspective? Are there extra questions or areas to focus on for those with autism, ADHD, etc. in the workplace?
I suppose my response to that is everybody is individual and unique, and effective leaders are able to understand each of their people, to know them, to have
Yeah.
it, not just know them as a person, but also to have had really structured conversations around what people need to work well. What are the things that are stressful for them in the workplace? Good leaders are able to come up with systems to enable people to be their best selves at work. And I think when neurodiversity comes into that picture, then, well, that is one, as a leader, do I know a little bit about that? Or if I don't, can I go and find out that information? And can I have curious questions with my people, because they know themselves better than a textbook, or they know themselves better than someone in HR telling me what to implement for them? Actually,
Yeah.
can I have good, curious conversations with my team? And actually, if I am a leader with neurodiversity, have I got good awareness about how that may impact on my people? Knowing that how my brain works might not be the same as how everybody
Yeah.
else works. Can I gather feedback on what's useful and not useful to my leadership? Can I work with somebody on shifting some behavior if it's unhelpful?
Yeah. Incredible answer. I think it's absolutely that. So, Jackie, thank you so much for being here with
Pleasure.
us today. I know that you've got kids in the background and we appreciate your time. I hope everybody has enjoyed it. Thank you from Tribe, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Ka kite anō.